So, you're a space fan. You know all about Apollo 11, the Voyager Golden Record, the Hubble Space Telescope, and of course the Perseverance rover currently doing its thing on Mars. These are the headliners, the rock stars of space exploration that get all the press, and for good reason. They've fundamentally changed how we see the universe and our place in it. But for every one of these iconic missions, there are dozens of others that flew under the radar. Missions that were just as ambitious, just as daring, and sometimes, honestly, even more bizarre. They pushed the boundaries of science and engineering, but their stories have been lost to the archives of history. Think you know every space mission? Think again. The history of spaceflight is filled with these hidden gems, incredible stories of triumph, mystery, and sometimes spectacular failure. These are the missions that don't make the front page but are crucial parts of the larger story of our journey to the stars. They laid the groundwork, tested new technologies, and collected data that is still being analyzed today. So, before we dive in, take a second and drop a comment below. What are some of the most obscure space missions you can think of? I'm genuinely curious to see what you all come up with. Alright, let's get into it. We're going to count down my top 10 list of the most fascinating space missions you've probably never heard of. This isn't just about what they accomplished, it's about the stories behind them. We're talking about everything from secret military spy stations to probes that literally crashed back to Earth with priceless samples from the sun. We'll cover the unsung heroes, the mysterious disappearances, and the sheer audacity of these lesser-known projects. It's a deep dive into the footnotes of space history, and trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this one. Kicking off our list at number 10 is a mission that had the unfortunate timing of being the opening act for a legend. I'm talking about Pioneer 11. Now everyone knows the Voyager probes, right? Voyager 1 and 2 did the grand tour of the outer planets, and their flyby of Saturn in the early 80s gave us those iconic, poster-worthy images of the ringed planet. But here's the thing, they weren't the first to get there. That honor belongs to Pioneer 11, which swung by Saturn a full year before Voyager 1. It was the Pathfinder, the scout sent ahead to brave the unknown. Launched in 1973, its primary mission was actually Jupiter, which it flew by a year later. But then, NASA flight controllers got ambitious. They threaded this tiny probe through the asteroid belt and slingshotted it using Jupiter's gravity all the way out to Saturn. It was a high-risk maneuver. They even sent it on a trajectory that flew dangerously close to Saturn's rings, a path they deliberately chose to test the environment for the more advanced, more expensive Voyager probes that were following behind. Pioneer 11 essentially took one for the team, paving the way for one of history's greatest missions, and in the process became a footnote itself, a true unsung hero. Coming in at number 9 is a mission that's less about what it accomplished, and more about the mystery it left behind. This is the story of the Mars Observer. In the early 90s, this was a huge deal. It was NASA's first mission back to the Red Planet in nearly 2 decades, a billion-dollar, state-of-the-art orbiter designed to map the entire Martian surface in incredible detail. It was carrying a suite of advanced instruments to study the geology, climate, and potential for life. The hype was real. After a nearly year-long journey from Earth, everything was looking perfect. On August 21, 1993, just 3 days before it was scheduled to enter Mars orbit, the spacecraft began its final pressurization sequence for its main engine burn, and then, silence. Radio contact was lost. Just like that, it vanished. Mission Control tried for weeks to re-establish a signal, sending commands into the void, hoping for a response that never came. To this day, no one knows for sure what happened. The leading theory is a catastrophic failure in the propulsion system, a fuel line rupture that caused the probe to spin wildly out of control. It's a ghost ship, likely still orbiting Mars or having crashed onto its surface, a billion-dollar reminder that space is, and always will be, incredibly unforgiving. For our number 8 spot, we're rewinding to the height of the Cold War and the space race. While the US was celebrating the success of the Apollo program, the Soviet Union was quietly running its own highly successful and often overlooked robotic lunar program, the Luna missions. And the one we're talking about today is Luna 24, the final mission of that incredible series. Launched in 1976, it had a singular difficult goal: land on the moon, drill into the surface, and return a sample of lunar soil back to Earth, all completely autonomously. This was incredibly advanced for the time. This wasn't their first rodeo. They'd done it before with Luna 16 and 20. But Luna 24 was different. It landed in an unexplored region called the Mare Crisium, or Sea of Crises, and its drill went deeper than any previous Soviet mission, pulling up a core sample from 2 meters below the surface. After securing the precious cargo, the ascent stage blasted off from the moon and made the long journey back, parachuting down in Siberia. What's wild is that for decades, this was the last sample of the moon brought back to Earth by anyone. It marked the quiet end of the Soviet lunar program and a 44-year gap in lunar sample return missions, a gap only recently broken by China's Chang'e 5. At number 7 we have a mission that perfectly captures the idea of snatching victory from the jaws of defeat, or maybe snatching partial victory from the jaws of a spectacular crash. This is the Genesis mission. The concept was brilliant, almost poetic. Instead of sending a probe out to study the sun from afar, Genesis was designed to go out and bring a piece of the sun back to Earth. Not literally, of course, but the next best thing: samples of the solar wind, the stream of charged particles constantly flowing from the sun. For 2 years it sat in space, collecting these pristine particles in special collectors made of pure silicon and diamond. The plan for its return was something straight out of a Hollywood movie. The sample return capsule would re-enter the atmosphere, deploy a parachute, and then a helicopter with a giant hook would swoop in and snag it mid-air to prevent any damage from a hard landing. It was audacious. On September 8, 2004, the capsule came screaming back to Earth, but the parachute never opened. A design flaw meant the gravity switches were installed backwards. The helicopter pilots could only watch in horror as the capsule, containing its priceless cargo, slammed into the Utah desert at nearly 200 miles per hour. It was a disaster, but the science team managed to recover and painstakingly clean some of the shattered collector fragments, salvaging enough data to make the mission a partial success. For number 6, we're heading over to Japan for a mission that is a true testament to engineering persistence. This is Hayabusa. Launched by JAXA in 2003, it was Japan's first attempt to do something incredibly difficult: fly to an asteroid, land on it, collect a sample, and bring it home. The target was a tiny, potato-shaped asteroid named Itokawa. From the very beginning, this mission was plagued with problems. A massive solar flare damaged its solar panels shortly after launch, and 2 of its 3 reaction wheels used for pointing the spacecraft failed mid-journey. Despite the setbacks, it reached Itokawa in 2005. The landing attempts were chaotic. The first one was aborted, and during the second, the spacecraft basically just bumped into the asteroid and sat there for about 30 minutes. The sample collection system, which was supposed to fire a small projectile to kick up dust, also failed to activate. Then, on the journey home, it suffered a major fuel leak and lost communication with Earth for 7 weeks. Against all odds, the brilliant engineering team managed to regain control and nurse the crippled spacecraft back. In 2010, the sample capsule re-entered Earth's atmosphere in a fiery blaze over Australia, and inside they found about 1,500 microscopic grains from the asteroid Itokawa, a heroic effort for a handful of dust. Alright, halfway through the list, and at number 5 we have a mission that sounds like it was ripped from a James Bond movie. We're talking about Salyut 3. Publicly, this was part of the Soviet Union's Salyut program of civilian space stations, a research outpost in orbit. Launched in 1974, it hosted 1 crew of cosmonauts for a 2-week stay. They conducted medical experiments and Earth observation. It sounds pretty standard, right? But Salyut 3 had a secret. Its real name was Almaz 2, and it was a dedicated military reconnaissance spy station. The Earth observation wasn't just for science, it was for spying. The station had a massive high-resolution camera that used physical film, which was then sent back to Earth in a special return capsule. But that's not even the wildest part. To protect the station from potential inspection or attack by American anti-satellite weapons, Salyut 3 was armed. It had a modified 23mm aircraft cannon mounted on its exterior. After the crew had left and just before the station was deorbited, Mission Control remotely test-fired the cannon in space, reportedly firing 3 bursts. A space station with a gun. It remains the only time a conventional weapon has been officially fired in space, a truly wild relic of Cold War paranoia. Coming in hot at number 4 is a mission that held a remarkable speed record for over 4 decades. Meet Helios 2. This wasn't just a NASA mission, it was a joint project between the United States and West Germany, a symbol of international cooperation launched way back in 1976. The goal was simple but, honestly, incredibly ambitious: get closer to the sun than any spacecraft had ever been before. The two Helios probes were designed to fly inside the orbit of Mercury, enduring extreme heat and radiation to study the solar wind and the sun's magnetic field in its native environment. Helios 2, the second of the pair, was the real record breaker. Using a gravitational assist from the sun itself, it was whipped around our star at a blistering speed. On April 17, 1976, it reached its perihelion, its closest point to the sun, and clocked in at a velocity of 252,792 kilometers per hour, or about 157,000 miles per hour. That's fast enough to go from New York to Los Angeles in just over a minute. For 42 years, it held the title of the fastest man-made object ever. It was only recently surpassed by the Parker Solar Probe, but Helios 2 was the original sundiver, a testament to 1970s engineering that really pushed the limits of speed and endurance. For our number 3 spot, we're looking at a mission from a very familiar program, but with a twist of secrecy. We all know the space shuttle, but we usually think of it deploying satellites like Hubble or building the ISS. What's less talked about are the dedicated missions for the Department of Defense, and one of the most interesting of these was STS-39, flown by the Space Shuttle Discovery in 1991. While it wasn't a fully classified mission like some earlier ones, a significant portion of its payload and experiments were top secret. The official unclassified purpose of the mission was to study atmospheric phenomena and infrared radiation, with a payload called the Air Force Program 675. But tucked away in the cargo bay were classified experiments, including one called Space Test Program 1, or STP-1. This involved deploying and observing a smaller satellite and studying the effects of the shuttle's rocket burns in the upper atmosphere. The goal was to better understand the signatures of rockets and spacecraft for missile defense systems, part of the Star Wars Strategic Defense Initiative. So while the public saw science, the military was gathering crucial intelligence, using the space shuttle as a high-tech observation platform in the sky. The runner-up spot, number 2, goes to a mission that demonstrates a new level of ambition and capability from a rising space power. This is China's Chang'e 2. Launched in 2010, its primary mission was a follow-up to their first lunar orbiter, Chang'e 1. It was designed to orbit the moon at a much lower altitude, just 100 kilometers, to scout and map potential landing sites for the future Chang'e 3 lander and rover. It did its job perfectly, creating the highest resolution map of the entire moon to date. And for most missions, that's where the story would end. But this is where it gets really interesting. Instead of just deorbiting the probe, the Chinese Space Agency decided to go on an extended tour of the solar system. First, they sent Chang'e 2 on a journey to the Sun-Earth L2 Lagrange point, a deep space parking spot about 1.5 million kilometers from Earth, just to prove they could operate a probe that far away. Then, they did something even cooler. They sent it on a flyby of the near-Earth asteroid 4179 Toutatis. In December 2012, the little lunar orbiter zipped past the asteroid, snapping the first close-up pictures ever taken of it. A single mission that mapped the moon, traveled to a Lagrange point, and visited an asteroid. That's a serious flex. And here it is, the number 1 most fascinating forgotten space mission on my list. It's not a flashy flyby or a secret spy station, it's a workhorse. A series of satellites so fundamental to our understanding of near-Earth space that their data is still used, yet their name is almost completely unknown. I'm talking about OGO-1, the first of the orbiting geophysical observatories. Launched way back in 1964, OGO was NASA's ambitious attempt to create a standardized observatory-class satellite that could carry dozens of different experiments on a single flight. OGO-1 was a beast for its time, weighing over 1,000 pounds and carrying 20 different scientific instruments from universities and research centers all over the country. Its mission was to study the Earth's magnetosphere, the complex magnetic bubble that protects us from solar radiation. Unfortunately, right after launch, its main stabilization system failed and the satellite began to slowly tumble. But the mission controllers and scientists improvised. They figured out how to get useful data from the spinning satellite, and it ended up operating for 5 years and wasn't officially decommissioned until 1971. It, and its 5 successors, provided a massive, continuous stream of data that became the baseline for our entire understanding of space weather and Earth-Sun interactions. It's the ultimate unsung hero. So there you have it. 10 incredible stories from the hidden history of space exploration. From armed spy stations and Martian ghosts to probes that crashed, tumbled, and fought their way to success. These missions show that the path to the stars is paved with more than just the famous successes. It's built on the lessons learned from these lesser-known, often more dramatic endeavors. Each one, whether a triumph or a failure, added a crucial piece to the puzzle, pushing our knowledge and our technology just a little bit further. They are the giants whose shoulders we now stand on. These were my picks, but the archives are deep. And I know there are so many other amazing missions out there that deserve a spotlight, so now it's your turn. What's your favorite obscure space mission? Was there one you were shocked I didn't include on this list? Drop it in the comments below. I'm genuinely interested to read through them and see which hidden gems you all dig up. Let's get a real conversation going about the unsung heroes of spaceflight, because there are so many more stories worth telling. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive into the footnotes of space history, let me know. If this video gets enough interest, maybe we'll do a part 2. There's no shortage of material, from forgotten Venus landers to strange deep space probes that just keep on going. So hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and as always, thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.